before we dive any further into this film, I felt the need after editing it to insert this little clip to explain to you the extent of challenges I have faced hunting elk in British Columbia. So to set the scene, I've been hunting elk in BC for 7 years. I've gone on 8 hunts in British Columbia over those 7 years, 4 elk specifically. That doesn't count any of my out-of-province elk hunts. That guy right there is from New Mexico, 2019, public land, draw tag, premium unit for sure, but archery bull, solo 10,000 feet. So it's not like I haven't been able to kill an elk, but over the last 7 years and 8 hunts in British Columbia, I have been unable to kill an elk. I've only had a handful of encounters. I've hunted Haida Gwaii, I've hunted northern BC, I've gone in on jet boat, I've hiked into the backcountry, I've bivvy camped from the truck. Everything that you can think of. I've had people reach out with spots. I've had people reach out with tips. I've taken calling seminars. Like, I have done everything humanly possible to try and kill an elk in British Columbia. And it's just been my arch nemesis. Not only have I not killed one, I haven't even really got close that many times. And so that's why I called this the 7-year elk hunt. You know, if I bring anything to the table as a hunter and a filmmaker, I'm like a voice for the average Joe, because I don't go on super expensive guided hunts. I don't have a bunch of friends that give me spots. I didn't grow up in a hunting family. I'm just a normal dude trying to get it done. And I guess that's what I'm trying to get across with this. In this age of social media and YouTube, I think the effort it takes to find and kill your own animals in your own way is often underrepresented. And some people have a false sense of how difficult this thing we love should be. I hold very strong to the opinion that the harder, the better. It's the things that I've had to wait the longest for and worked the hardest for in my life that I've ended up appreciating the most and that have ended up impacting me the most. So even though I failed for 7 straight years and 8 straight hunts, I still love it. I love being out there and I love chasing it. So without further ado, welcome to my 7-year elk hunt. All right, welcome to a 2022 solo elk hunt. We're kicking it old school on this one. We have 1 week to get it done. Now, a bit of context. Last week I got home from a hunt. I had a 9-day hunt with my father and my brother. We were elk hunting in the exact same region I'm headed back to right now, northern British Columbia. And we got skunked. We had a couple close encounters. We had bugles on a couple days. I'll get into some more of those details as this kind of hunt progresses and they seem pertinent. But the area we were in got slammed really hard the week before we were there, and I think it just pushed all the elk out. And we tried bouncing around and doing what we could. But neither my brother or my father, my brother's still a rookie hunter. This was his first big game hunt, and it's only my father's second Western hunt. He's done a bunch of hunting in Ontario, but he's older, and this also isn't really his style. So neither of those guys were super aggressive or super physical, which limited us a little bit, which was fine. We still had a blast and got to cover lots of ground. But what I'm saying is, now that I'm by myself, and this is what I meant when I said we're kicking it old school, I'm going in there and hunting elk like the only way that has ever successfully produced elk kills for me, and that is just cover ground as hard and fast as possible until you get in the sign that says, there is elk here right now, and then you stop and really start hunting. I didn't even bring a tent. I brought a foamy to roll out in the back of the truck. We're gonna, you know, park at the trailhead every night, wake up and just start hunting right from the truck. And then, you know, if we don't see anything, we'll get back in the truck at dark. We'll drive through the night to a new spot. We'll set back up and do the exact same thing the next day and just cover as much ground as possible. And I'll try and capture as much of the action as I can. Now, it's a little bit later in the season. It's the first week of October, but I do have some buddies hunting in the area, and from all accounts, There's still bugles going off, and there's still pockets of rutting bulls to be found. So I'm feeling pretty optimistic because I got a couple new spots in my back pocket that I'm looking to check out, and then I still got all the spots from last week where we saw action that I think, now that the pressure is alleviated in the unit, I think some of those elk are going to come back off private. They're going to come back across the river that they'd crossed, and I think we might see some action. So here we go. Let's go kill an elk. All right, so I didn't make it as far as I wanted to. I got 3 hours driving, but it was getting way too sketchy. Time to pull over, getting pretty sleepy. So here's the setup for the trip. Got most of the gear can all stay in the back. I had this made up a couple years ago. It's like a 4-inch thick foam mattress that folds in 3 pieces, and then I just got my synthetic quilt and a nice pillow. So should be relatively comfortable. So it's about midnight now. I'm gonna sleep for 2.5 hours, get up and drive the last 3 hours, and that'll put me where I wanna hike in for 5:30 in the morning. So we're still on track, still good to go. Time to get some sleep, get ready to hunt tomorrow. All right, so here's the deal. Drove all night, as you already know. Got here. I'm here about half an hour late. I'm ready about a half an hour later than I wanted to be. But I do so much driving for hunting now. I try to play it conservative, and when I start doing the nod, I just pull over. So I had to pull over for a second nap. I slept for 2.5 hours at that first pullout. Drove about an hour down the road, pulled over for another 40 minutes, and then drove the rest of the way here. So we're getting a bit of a late start, but it's okay. I heard some coyotes over that way, which is a little bit disconcerting, but I'm headed in there, so hopefully everything will be all right and it'll be quiet down in there. This kind of dumps off this lease, and then there's a fairly main river kind of quite a ways over that way, and I'm just going to basically spend the whole morning doing a whole big loop, trying to get as close to that river as I can, see if I can find any major sign, any game trails. I'm just gonna do a bunch of cow calling and maybe a few location bugles as I go, so let's do this. I've been hiking and calling for about 2 hours, maybe 3/4 of the mile from the truck. Really taking my time, and I've come down this, I don't know, maybe 400-foot, pretty steep slope, lots of windfall. And now I'm on the flat that goes all the way to the river, maybe 400 or 500 yards. And I'm gonna do a big ass loop, like 400 or 500 yards that way, maybe 600 or 700 yards that way, and then slowly work my way back up to the truck. I'm seeing sign of elk, but not fresh. I haven't found a single pile of shit. I'm seeing tracks and I'm seeing beds, but likely weeks old. Nothing super fresh, but I'm thinking they might feel safer down here on the flat because most people aren't gonna walk down that hill. So it's gonna take my time doing mostly cow calls and listening, because it's so dry in here right now. If anything is moving around, I'm gonna hear it crunching leaves and popping sticks.
All right, we struck out this morning. However, on the way out of that piece, I saw the most encouraging sign of the day just before I got to the truck. I found some fresh scat and some fresher beds. So maybe I'll go back in there for an early morning sit one of these days if the other stuff that I've got on the books doesn't pan out. So we hopped in the truck, drove about 40 minutes, came over to a different piece on the other side of a different river, and now we're dead walking about 2 miles down this deactivated road to find another piece to bomb into, see if we can't scare up some elk.
All right, that is a wrap for day one. Officially got my ass kicked. In my head, I was gonna come back up and I was just gonna step out of the truck and there was just gonna be a cacophony of bugles everywhere I turned. And that was not the case. Did not hear a single bugle today. And didn't see anything in any of the spots that I went that really would pull me back. So, kind of funny. I forgot the insoles to my boots. I swapped boots between my last hunt and this hunt, and I forgot to take the insoles out of the other ones. So I noticed when I was a couple hundred yards from the truck, I was like, oh, my boots feel weird. And then I was like, oh, because I'm walking on the bare soles of the boots. So that was enjoyable all day. I'm gonna park right where we're gonna be hunting tomorrow morning so I can get a little bit of a sleep in, maybe till 5 or so. And then wake up and try this all over again.
All right, it's the morning of day 2. We're headed into a new area. I've never been here before. A buddy of mine had bugles back in here a week ago, a couple days in a row. So let's see if we can turn something up. Now this is what we're looking for. Okay, we just got a bugle. It's really far away, but it is 100% a bugle. And it's in line with where I'm going. So hopefully this trail keeps up and I can get over there reasonably well. So I've been sitting here for about half an hour, and every 10-15 minutes I'll let a bugle rip. And every time I do, back over here, these like coyotes just light up for like 5 minutes. And it's like, it's not the sound you want to hear. And it has me second guessing the bugle that I heard earlier. Or at the very least, I'm in the general area where that bugle was. And if that guy can hear what I can hear, he's not gonna make a peep. I think I'm gonna hike back to the truck and go check a different spot, because I don't think anybody's gonna be vocal in here with all that ruckus that they're making over there. And it's just too thick in here. Like, if you can't call, you can't hunt, because you're gonna be 10 feet on top of something and bump it before you even know it's there. So just keep grinding. All right, I haven't done much filming since this morning. That place was a dud. I went and checked another couple spots. No luck. And then, it was kind of funny, I had this revelation. I've never hunted elk with a rifle in the rut before, and I kind of don't believe in it. I think it's something that should be done with a bow. Just my 2 cents. Everybody, let me rephrase that. For me, I prefer to hunt elk in the rut with a bow. Just feels more intimate. So I said to myself, screw it, put the rifle away, let's get the bow out. So went for a bow hike to a new piece of country, And we got first bugles of the trip. Maybe that was a bugle this morning that the coyotes shut up. Maybe it wasn't. But this guy is fired up. I don't know if it's going to show on the camera. It's pretty late. It's almost 7 o'clock right now. It got so late I didn't feel comfortable, ethical, taking a shot. But I posted up in this one area and was cow calling for like 40 minutes. And I thought I heard something walk in, but it wouldn't break out. It turned out not to be an elk. It was actually a grouse. But I tried to bugle to see if I could get what I thought was the elk to break out, because I've been sticking to mostly cow calls. And then way across the valley, just this rip snorting bugle pipes back. And I was like, oh, daddy's home. And that was about an hour ago. And since then I've been hiking and cow calling and hiking and bugling. And just now, I think he was less than 200-300 yards from me. And he crossed all that distance, I think, coming towards the cow calls. But I was in really thick undergrowth. Like, I mean, really thick. Like maybe you would get a 7-8 yard shot. And it was dark. And I was like, if he comes in here and wins me, I'm going to ruin this. I thought, I know where he is. I don't think he's going anywhere. I'm going to back out and come in tomorrow with a better game plan. So yeah, that's the results of the day. I had to make one more quick note because I don't think I made the point. I think I started to make a point and I didn't finish it. So I find it rather comical that as soon as I put the rifle away and take out the bow, the elk gods smile down upon me with some bugles. I'm not a big woo-woo kind of guy, but I don't know. Seems to be a bit too much for coincidence, if you ask me. All right, so I'm on my way back in to the piece that we pulled out of last night, trying to get in there in the dark. And I'm going to look to set up a good spot with some shooting lanes, because that was the frustration last night, was that even if he'd have come in, there was no way I could take a shot. So before I start my calling sequence this morning, I'm going to get to a spot that has some good shooting lanes, and then we're going to see if we can get this guy fired up. Okay, so here's the deal. I've been hunting for about 3 hours. Haven't heard a peep yet. But here's the strategy. So it's crazy thick in here. So what I do is I hike until I find an opening. And here's an example of one I found. And then what I do is I tuck myself just inside the tree line. And I do a calling sequence for like 20-25 minutes. Mostly cow calls, but I will mix in a location bugle because that's what got that other one fired up last night. And then if I don't hear or see anything after 20-25 minutes, I keep hiking and I try and get at least 300-400 yards before I stop again, and I look for another opening and I just rinse and repeat the same strategy. And I'm just going to keep that up all morning. The weather's terrible this morning. It's cold, it's wet, it's rainy, it's a little windy. So I'm not overly optimistic. I mean, if I didn't have to be out here hunting elk, I'd be curled up in bed right now if I was in this particular weather. So it is what it is. The rain is supposed to lift after around 12 or 1 this afternoon. And then I think there's probably the opportunity for a real good evening hunt. So just keep on keeping on. All right, I just bumped, looked to be a younger bull moose with a cow. It went on for a good 2 or 3 minutes before I turned the camera on. And I've heard bull moose grunt before, but that was like a grunt and a growl mixed into one. Oh my God, crazy. Well, at least we saw something cool. You've got to be kidding me. I could have drilled that moose with my bow. No problem. No problem. Let's see how far away it was. 25 yards. Bull moose at 25 yards.
Okay, I had to jump back in real quick here. Now, one of the problems with solo filming while solo hunting is that sometimes things happen really fast and you are forced to make the decision to whether prioritize the filming or prioritize the hunting. I tend to fall on the hunting end of the spectrum. I'm not good enough to prioritize the filming. Let's make things clear. I'm no Remy Warren. I'm doing the best I can. So what you're about to see is an encounter with an elk. And I'm going to set the scene here. So essentially, after I had the second encounter with the moose, I decided I needed to clear right out of that plateau because there was just too many moose kicking around. So I hiked a good half a kilometer, started hitting this kind of like benchy aspen glade forest thing. Beautiful, like really light undergrowth, decently spaced trees, lots of light coming in, fall colors. You're talking one of the most picturesque things you can possibly imagine, and looked super elky. And I'm still cow calling and throwing the odd bugle. I'm getting nothing. And I'm walking and I'm walking and I'm walking, and all of a sudden I see this big lick. And I don't really think much of it. I'm going to be honest with you, but I do have my bow in hand and I'm walking at like half speed. I really learned how to hunt still hunting blacktail. So even when I'm walking through the forest, I'm always at half attention, you know, at the very least, if not full attention. I'm never just bombing through the woods, paying no attention to what's going on. And so I come around the corner of this lick and it's in this depression. And out of the corner of my eye, I just see two tines go like this. And I stopped. And I backed up behind a tree. And I'm going to be brutally honest here. I just instantly started shaking. Like typewriter leg times a million. Like literally just like this. So the very first thing I did is said to myself, calm down. You just saw an elk. He did not see you. If you rush this situation, you're going to screw it up. So I took probably 60 to 90 seconds and just did a bunch of real deep breaths, got my composure. Now I did have the presence of mind to put the GoPro on my head. However, I need to angle it. It was in my hip belt pocket and I always compress it flat when I put it in there. And when I put it on my head, I kind of have to angle it forward about 30 degrees so that it lines up with my eyesight. I forgot to do that. It's kind of pointing up at the sky for the scene you're about to see, which is why I wanted to come in here and set the scene. So when we cut back to the film, what you're gonna see is I've already come back behind a tree, I've regained my composure, and I have put the GoPro on and hit record. And I believe I've knocked an arrow at this point. So now I'm ready to kind of get into the action. Now what I'm also gonna do, I typically hate voiceover narrative in hunt films. I like the more real-time, recorded as you go type of thing. But I feel like this GoPro footage without the addition of some voiceover just doesn't adequately explain what's going on. So I'm gonna jump in while it's playing and add a little bit of context and color. All right, here we go.
At this point, I've regained my composure and I'm about to start working my way back out towards the elk. Now, if you look at the bottom of that conifer tree, there's that bare log laying on the ground. Right behind there in a depression is where I saw the tines. So I'm going to slowly work my way out to the left. So at this point, I can see he's lying on the ground lengthwise, looking away from me, giving me a shot from the back, or maybe what could be perceived as like an extreme quartering away shot. And I'm trying to decide, do I wait for him to stand up? Do I cow call? Or do I force a quartering away shot? I come to the decision that I'm going to force the quartering away shot. Come to full draw. I immediately see that I hit a little high left. You can see right here the arrow sticking out. Got about 8 inches of penetration, but it's a little bit shallow. I immediately cow call. Get him to slow down, reload an arrow, cow call again, come to full draw, he's at 30, smoked him at 30 yards, shot felt great, I watch him run 20 to 30 yards, he stumbles, he falls over, kicking in the air. Was crazy. He's done. He's done.
All right, guys, there you go. 7 years, and I got my BC elk. Not only did I do that, I did it solo, and I did it with my bow. And I want to take a quick second to talk about that. I am not an archery elitist. I don't care how you want to hunt. As long as it's legal, it brings you and your family joy, puts meat on your table, and makes you a happy individual. Have at her, fill your boots. Couldn't care less. One thing that I've learned about myself is that I feel a much more intimate connection, both with the hunt and with the animal, when I hunt with my bow. I've killed a handful of animals with rifles, and I've killed a handful of animals with my bow. And I'm gonna be honest with you right now, it just feels different when you kill an animal with a bow. So when I decided to put the rifle away and hunt with my bow, I immediately felt like it was the right decision. But when I rewatched how I explained that decision, I felt like it came off a little self-righteous, and I don't want that to be the case. I fully support hunters of all kinds. It really doesn't matter to me as long as you're getting after it. You're cool with me and you're part of the gang. So now that that's out of the way, how crazy was that? So I want to go over this real quickly again, because I don't know how much of my like inner thoughts or insights I was sharing with you as that went on. So obviously there was a moment of like instant, like a rush as soon as I saw the tines. I'm going to be honest, I'm very happy with how I conducted myself. I'm not completely satisfied with all of the decisions I made, but I am completely satisfied that I kept a calm composure. And I think that almost above all else has helped me be successful in the animals that I have killed. I always tend to remember exactly what happens. I tend to be very clear-minded and present in the heat of the moment. I don't get these like blackout things that people talk about where you like don't remember the sight or you don't remember looking through your peep. Like I remember all of it. Anchoring, shot sequence, whole 9 yards. So anyways, I guess the first decision is when I realized that the elk was lying perfectly, I guess you would call it parallel with my direction. Like he was not broadside. He was like very extremely quartering away. And I sat there, you see it on the GoPro footage, and I even cut some of that GoPro footage out just because I didn't want you to watch 5 minutes of me staring up at the trees. I really thought about that decision. And I had 3 choices in my mind. I could make a cow call, force him to stand up, sit there and wait for him to stand up, or force a shot. Now there are pros and cons of all of those. I decided to force the shot, and the shot didn't land exactly where I wanted it to. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I would do that again. I think I was probably aiming basically with my 20-yard pin, and I think I was only 12 yards away. I think that was problem number 1. And I think I was excited, so I probably wasn't shooting at 100%, skill and proficiency. But these are the decisions that we make as hunters. I made that decision and I stick by it, and we've got a dead elk, so I was able to recover the situation in a positive way. But when I shot him and spined him, I instantly felt that pukey sensation in my guts. Like, oh my God, 7 years, I finally got a chance and I just blew it. But I didn't let that take me off the rails completely. And so I always have a diaphragm in my mouth when I get in close to elk for the exact reason that's about to follow. And here's another moment where I'm kind of proud of myself that in a stressful moment, I was able to keep my composure. The instant I saw that I had spined the elk, I realized I had to knock another arrow as quickly as possible while keeping my eyes on the elk. The other thing that the GoPro doesn't show is that as he was stepping away, it was like he was doing this stanky leg. And I don't know, I think it's possible that spined arrow might have eventually taken him out anyways. It's possible I got right in the spine because you could see that like something wasn't working right on him. And I think that's also why he just didn't sprint right away. That being said, I knew I had to respond quickly if I was going to have any chance. And so as you see in the footage, I hit him with a cow call right away because I wanted him to take that second look and doubt for a second exactly what had occurred. And then once the arrow was knocked and I slowed him down with the first cow call, he then kind of broke out into this area between 2 trees, which you can see pretty clearly on the GoPro. And I eyeballed that at 30 yards. That's when I hit him with the second cow call just to like really cement him in place. Came back to full draw and smashed him at 30 yards. Now, it was a high double lung. In a perfect world, I would have liked to have shot about 6 inches lower. However, at that point, the elk runs 20 yards and dies in sight. So the shot must have been good enough. But upon further inspection, once I got them caped and processed, I could see that it was a little bit higher than I wanted to. But I ranged those trees afterwards, and 30 was bang on. But again, I was excited. You know, does that count for a shot sequence not breaking perfectly? Sure, to some degree. So I immediately, here's another element that I need to add to the story. I did have a buddy in the general vicinity who was working in the area, and he had told me, listen, if you take one down, I should be able to get a quad relatively close to the area where you're going. That had given me the confidence to go as deep as I had. I want to back up here a little bit. I think at least half of success in hunting, or half of my success in hunting, is owed to the fact that I just never stop. I don't quit. I just keep hunting and hunting and hunting. Because the bottom line is, it was not my skill that killed this elk. It was not solely my skill that killed this elk. You know, this elk, I called in, I had to break him with cow calls, I was doing raking. Like, I feel very responsible for the sequence of events that took place that killed this elk. This one was more chance. However, if you don't keep hunting, you can't have more chances. And I will take responsibility or credit for where I was. I had very specifically tried to get as deep as I possibly could and get as close to a main river as I possibly could, because that late in the season, I was thinking elk are rutted out, they're trying to get away from the pressure, and they're gonna get in the thick shit down by the river. And basically, that's exactly what happened. So I will take credit for that strategic part of the decision. But knowing that we could get a quad close in, like that would have been an insane pack out solo, like a multiple day pack out solo from where I was, 100%. Anyways, as soon as the elk hit the ground, I threw an inReach to my buddy. He said, I'm rounding up the crew. I want to take a minute here. The guys who came in and helped me asked not to be shout out, primarily because it might give some tips as to exactly where I was. And I think probably because they're just like good Northern BC boys that aren't like social media whores that need to be tagged and thanked, you know, like the rest of us. And I just want to say, except for the one dude who is an Instagram buddy who I had met before, I'd never met the other 3 dudes before. I had 2 dudes I'd never met before hike in to help me pack out that bull. The sense of support and encouragement in the hunting community that I got on this specific hunt blew my mind. People consistently reaching out, you can do this, man, giving me tips, giving me spots. I felt like people had ownership in this hunt, like they wanted me to succeed. And for these 4 guys to take off work a few hours early, come all the way in and help me hike out this bull, it really speaks volumes about where we're at in the hunting community. So anyways, they got the quad pretty close. I processed the whole bull. By the time they showed up, I was locked, cocked, ready to rock. Everything in game bags, caped, the whole 9 yards. I am doing a shoulder mount. I typically prefer Euros. And I know he's not a giant bull, but trophies to me are meant to signify like an emotional connection or a sentimental value that the animal has to you and the moment that you shared. And having worked so hard for so long and having doubted myself so many times, here's the deal. When I woke up in the truck that morning, I knew I was going to fail. That's what I would have told you. I knew I was going to go home empty-handed. However, I behaved like I was going to be successful. So mentally, I thought I was going to fail, but physically, I acted as if I was going to succeed. And I think that's the big takeaway from this hunt. I'm always trying to figure out, like, what's the lesson here? What's the deeper underlying narrative or story that I need to share with people so that you can get more from this hunt than just, you know, a few minutes of entertainment on YouTube? And it's that you have to fake it till you make it. Like, no matter how much you doubt yourself, you behave like you're going to succeed. You always go over the next ridge. You always check the next hollow. You always call one more time before dark. You always get out of bed 15 minutes early. Like, If you do that again and again and again, you will be successful in spite of yourself. Here's the deal. I was 50 yards above that lick, literally on top of that guy's head, but because of the deflection of the hill and the way everything was laid out, I couldn't see him, he couldn't see me. I had literally cow called and bugled from less than 50 yards away, and he didn't budge. Not only did he not reply, he didn't even stand up. Like, he could not have cared less. And if it wasn't because of how thorough I was being and walking as if I might see something at any moment, and I'm sure running into all those moose had helped out. Like, I knew, okay, there's action here. There wouldn't be a dead elk. So anyways, I'm going to wrap this up now because once the elk hits the ground, half of you probably left the video anyways. But I do like to try and wrap things up, you know, with some insights and with some things that I've been pondering since this happened. And, you know, this was an incredibly important hunt to me, and I'm glad I could share it with you guys. And as always, you know, comments, feedback, tips, stories of your own successful and unsuccessful elk encounters. If I can be of help in any way, shape, or form, jay@mindfulhunter.com, DM on Instagram, mindful_hunter, or hit me up in the comments section below. If you could throw a subscribe on the YouTube channel, it's always greatly appreciated. And stay tuned for lots more gear reviews. And there's still a couple more hunts on the books this year, so hopefully we have some more good hunting stories to tell. And as always, thanks for tuning in.